All right, welcome everybody to another episode of No Stars TV, where we talk about the how rather than the who. And today we have back on the show, we have John and Zelda Adams, writers, directors, and actors in Hellbender. Maybe I don't know if y'all remember, but we had them on about two years ago with The Hatred. So glad to have y'all back, folks.
It is super nice to be back. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
We loved our last conversation and we're excited for this one.
Awesome. Yeah, well, I'm glad y'all made another movie because it made us to go reach out to y'all and look at this. And so let's get right to it. I mean, Hellbender. So, I mean, we did everything. Tell us a little bit about what Hellbender's about.
Well, Hellbender is about this girl named Izzy and her mom. And the mom keeps Izzy secluded away on a mountaintop because she has an illness. But soon Izzy discovers that she doesn't have an illness. Rather, her mom has been keeping something witchy from her. So it's a very witchy story with some mix of rock and a lot of nature.
Yeah, and it's nature versus nurture, and kind of the question of if your nature is questionable, do you go with it? And whose right is it to judge?
Right, exactly. And so before we even get to another question, I just want to say congratulations. I also saw that y'all won a couple of awards at some festivals. Zelda got Best Actress twice, and you got Best Score, which kind of leads me into my next question. My first question is, the beginning of The Hatred. I commented last time on how it started, and then just that shocking start with the music. I see you kind of held to form again this time. Tell me a little bit about that process of why you like to do that again, that kind of beginning.
That's a great question, and I'm so glad that you recognize that that's a characteristic. For me, I really found that in The Hatred, at least if it didn't work for anybody else, it worked for me, which is you start out with a heavy rocking tune, and it kind of lets the audience know a little bit about whether they should stay or not. And so we continued that with Hellbender, where we kind of show them something wild and visual, and then cut right into a heavy rock tune, and then cut right into these girls playing. And the juxtaposition of the 1800s mixed with modern times, kind of, punk rock mixed with history, was just a way to kind of say, hey, we're going to have fun. And it's also a way to say, if you didn't like that intro, and then the Hellbender font, and then these girls playing this punk rock, you should probably stop watching. You're not going to enjoy this movie.
Yeah.
It's a courtesy. It's kind of a courtesy.
It is, and it also, for me, it works because it kind of, like that first scene to where you go into music and Zelda and Toby are playing, it's different but similar. Like there's a rawness to what you just saw to how they're playing, especially being painted up a little bit. I like that. It worked for me.
That's very cool. You're the first person who's actually brought up that sequence in all of our interviews, and I really appreciate it. It was really important to us. We talked about that a lot. So just the fact that you bring it up is really nice.
Well, I mean, like I said, I mean, to me, I saw it because the way it started, you kind of quiet, and then that I don't want to give anything away, but then that body flies off, and then it goes into that. It worked for me. And David, I'm sorry if I'm taking up all the questions here, but I have another question though. Is interesting to me is that there's a scene, the beginning with a gun. With all the controversy with guns on set, what happened with Alec Baldwin, what kind of safety measures did you take? Is that something that was thought about? Is that just a fake gun in general? What kind of was there any kind of hesitancy about using that gun?
So that's a fake gun, and we never had any designs to bring a real handgun to a set with 13 people. But right. But I mean, these days it's so easy to put in fake gunfire. So yeah.
Right.
However, I will say in the past, we have used a real shot. Like we've used our family shotgun, I think, in 2 movies of ours. Um, and our whole safety rule is that gun is, everybody is first of all, there's no live ammo anywhere near, and the other thing is that gun is constantly showed to everybody as if it moves an inch,
Right.
it moves open and it moves an inch. And you know, guns are scary, guns are dangerous, but if you respect them, they can't kill you. And I'm not saying that those guys accident, like I don't want to get
Exactly.
involved
No, I
in,
totally understand. But,
there's ways to not hurt people. We're from a hunting community.
Yeah.
We're from upstate New York. The guns are very prevalent and I would say highly respected.
correct. No, good. I just wanted, like I said, just was something that's been, talked about, and y'all did it, and it seems like y'all did it safely. So just wanted to ask.
Yeah, in this case, we didn't fool around.
There's no such thing as checking too many times.
Yeah.
Even with a fake gun, it was always like, check the fake gun, check the fake gun.
Yeah, it's true. I mean,
because it looks so real.
It does.
Yep. David, do you have any questions? I have another one. I want to ask. You good?
Yeah. So as you know, Nelson and I, we watch films, and then we have long discussions on the film, and then decide whether or not to review it. And with Hellbender, because it seemed to me like a bit of a sequel to Hatred, right? It had some overlaps. We had the hanging scene in the Hatred, right? And then we have the hanging scene in Hellbender, right? And then also we have the lead actress Zelda Izzy is a child 147 years ago, right? And that could be now Toby in the future, right? So there was a lot of, for me in the movie, a lot of subconscious messages, a lot of overlapping from the Hatred to Hellbender, right? And also the same natural surroundings, which you shoot up at upstate New York, natural sounds, the woods, the snow, etc. So when I first saw the movie, and there's minimal dialogue in it, of course, I kept on thinking it was shot in black and white. I kept on, for some reason, somewhere in the movie, I got lost and thought this is black and white, but it's not. It's in color, right?
And was that intentional? Was that intentional doing something like that? Was like making that color?
Yeah, so when we made The Hatred, that was the first time that we had ever really filmed the movie in the winter. And something about the winter is just so stark, and it does feel black and white. It's simply just a lot of darks and whites and lights, and just
Yeah, and what's cool, it's really interesting. This is fun for us because a lot of people have seen Hellbender or The Deeper You Dig, never saw The Hatred. So like, it's really great that you guys saw The Hatred, because The Hatred is where all this stuff was born. Zelda and I, what happened with The Hatred was Toby was writing a script. She's the third member of our kind of filmmaking unit right now. And sometimes Lulu's part of that unit, but she was been in college the last 4 years. But Toby was writing a script, and Zelda and I decided to make The Hatred. And we wanted to explore what it was like to make horror. And we wanted to explore what it was like to shoot in the winter. And we fell in love with them both. And a lot of the things that we learned during The Hatred, we have definitely carried over to both films, The Deeper You Dig and now Hellbender. Because cinematically, we learned a ton, which is how amazingly stark and brutal the Catskills look in the winter. So they just feed themselves to this wonderful emotion that I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you can capture it in lots of other places in the world, but it definitely comes across in the Catskills. It's very easy to set up and capture this brutal, raw emotion.
Yeah, it almost like adds to the gruesomeness of the visuals, because since the trees are black and the snow is white, colors like flesh and blood just pop way more and have way more emphasis, which I think really adds to the visuals and the storytelling of it all.
And you talk about the hanging. So the hanging was a lot of fun for Zelda and I to shoot. There's a lot of, like, it's a very visceral kind of death, and it's very cinematic. And we definitely learned a lot from the hanging sequence in the Hatred, and we wanted to actually add more. So in this sequence, you can actually, you know, we do pull up the body. There's a bunch of things that we learned that were really fun to apply in Hellbender that we had learned from the Hatred. And I would say, lastly, the Hatred is a very dark, simple poem about hatred. It's not a super complex story. We just wanted to talk about hatred and say that if you continue the hatred, it goes from generation to generation. But Hellbender is a much more complex story. It's got a lot more in it. And so hopefully we took the elements that were beautiful and effective in the Hatred and applied them to Hellbender.
Well, so when I was watching it, and you're right, Zelda, the contrast of the black stone, the black rocks, and then the snow itself makes you think it's black and white in some moments in the film. But also I thought, as I was watching it, because minimal dialogue's in it, right? I thought for a while I was watching a foreign film that was dubbed in English, right?
Yeah.
I thought I was watching.
Interesting.
Yeah, I thought I was watching some Polish film or Czech film, and somewhere I got lost in the movie, and I thought, hey, you know, where are these guys from? What country is this from? Like, oh no, it's shot in New York, upstate New York. But I kept on thinking it was a foreign film because it's minimal. It seemed very. Have you ever seen Babette's Feast? It seemed kind of like that. It just seemed very Swedish or French, and I thought, well, maybe this film will be dubbed in several languages, and it can adapt easier in some other country, and not just in the United States, because it's an old dialogue. It's 3 characters, and then also the contrast with old. And in the old house and then the new house with the pool, right? So old tradition meets new world, old world. I don't know, and then Nelson and I had a good discussion about it. And Nelson had a bunch of questions about lighting and cinematics.
Oh
of it.
yeah.
So I haven't seen The Deeper You Dig, and I'm gonna go find it and watch it now, because that, again, did y'all use any lights again this time? Was it still one of those you didn't use any lights in Hatred. What'd you do with this one? Same thing? All natural?
Yeah, we don't use artificial lights ever. It's like one of our models. No artificial lights. We always use natural and really flat light, because flat light, you can edit it the best. You can like change what kind of color tones you want or what time of day you want the visual to look like. And we've just noticed that it really, really looks the best. So we spend a lot of times waiting on nature, waiting for a cloud to pass so that we can finally have a cloud covering the sun and some flat light to shoot the scene.
Yeah, it's interesting today. So we're working on our next movie called Where the Devil Roams. And as Zelda said, we'd love to shoot in flat light, but today was a beautiful sunny day with a fresh snow. So it's completely something that we can't shoot in. So we had to wait until exactly 5:15, and then we knew we had to be here at 6, so we were like, we had a half an hour to shoot a whole bunch of stuff in flat light. But it's like,
wow, so y'all were filming another movie right
and
before
that's
this
the
one?
advantage of being a tiny crew like us. It's not like there's 30 people that were wasting their time all day. It's just 3 of us. We had a snack, we went down, we shot, now we're talking to you. So it's a really fun experience.
Oh my God, that is so you were filming a movie right before you jumped on here.
Yes. That's why she's wearing this
so
kind of
awesome.
like
This fancy blue coat is from the 1930s.
That is so awesome. I mean, that's why I love y'all, because it's like what me and David talk about. Like, it's one of those things, like you can make a movie, you can make a film anytime, anywhere. Like just there's, if you have a camera, you can make a movie. And y'all are the epitome of that.
But it goes that goes to, however, and you're right, Nelson. I mean, Nelson and I discuss, doing all kinds of stuff all the time, but it gets down to storytelling, right? The dialogue, storytelling, the characters, the build-up, which you guys have had a lot of practice, and it's obvious. The way Zelda and Toby interacted was more familiar than acting. The way they respond to each, and then Lulu's a cousin. Lulu's a cousin, I guess.
Lulu's my sister.
Okay, there you go. So the way
Oh,
the energy
wow.
between Zelda and Lulu, that was again more familiar than it was acting. And I thought, okay, these guys know how to take the familiar, right? That they
Right.
know each other, and add the acting. So it's familiar and acting, not acting and familiar, which then
Yeah,
makes it natural.
that's perfectly said. You're right on the money. And
Yeah,
it's fun. I mean, we have an advantage of when we come home, we usually shoot like tonight, like we just shot something tonight. I'm going to go home. I'm going to look at it. I'm going to see whether we got it. And if we didn't, we're going to do it again. And we have that advantage because we're a family. So, you know, if Lulu and Zelda look at the scene that they shot and they think, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. I don't like the way I'm delivering the lines. It's not a big deal. We just go do it
Right.
again.
That is awesome. And so just like to just kind of build on that storytelling and being able to do this, like, so one of the things that really kind of caught me was the bee that y'all filmed against hitting the glass. And then I started thinking, you know, is that something that we're like, hey, this is cool, let's film it, because the story already had about like if you eat flesh, you know, the more big you are. And not only that, to show her being trapped, you know, like she's kind of behind this glass wall of, she sees this reality but can't get through it. Like, was that on purpose? Like, was that bee just there? Did you let the bee go off on the glass? Tell me about that scene. I liked how y'all shot that.
That is really great. Again, you're bringing up a scene that nobody else brings up, and it was really important to us. That happened. Toby and I were actually shooting a scene, and she said, oh my God, look at this bee. Put on the micro lens and film this bee, because it was just going meow, meow, and it was obviously stuck in this glass. And she was like, this is just a perfect metaphor for this kid. She's got a stinger, she can hurt you, but right now she's caught in between two worlds, and she can see them, but she can't get to them, and she doesn't know the way out. And so it was like, for me, it's so funny because that's the movie. That's the metaphor of the movie, is that right there. And so it's a really fun scene. It's not talked about very often. I love it when very rarely it's brought up, because it's one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
And that scene is a great example of what nature does for us. It brings us so many little storytelling gifts. That bee is such a crucial little shot in the film. Another one is the dead carcass of the deer.
That's my next question.
thing.
That question is 3 questions down, so I'll get to that in a second. But yes.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
No, I'm joking. Go ahead and talk about it. I'm joking. Go ahead and talk about it. I caught that too. I was like, oh, there's a carcass. Like, it just makes sense. There's no way they just saw that and be like, dude, we can shoot this right now. I mean, is that how it was?
Yeah, we were going to shoot another scene, maybe some like walking shots in the woods, and then we come across this huge carcass, and we're like, oh my God, we obviously have to do a scene around this. We'd be stupid not to. So this whole entire scene that has a lot of foreshadowing in it and a lot of just important lines revolves around this carcass that nature brought us, which is just so beautiful.
Yeah, that was definitely we were on a hike. We were just going to go shoot. We were going to go shoot the ranger scene that day, but we didn't have the ranger. So we were hiking actually to look for a good location and began to shoot to see where the light was going to be and stuff like that. And we came across that carcass, and then Toby actually again said, hey, you need to go get the camera and we need to shoot this, because this carcass could really play into something I'm trying to say in the movie that we haven't said yet. So while I went and got the camera, Toby kind of wrote those lines that the two of them then said. So it was like definitely nature literally throwing us a bone.
Yeah. Yeah. No, again, I noticed a lot of, it made sense. Like when I saw, you were shooting the on the wood, stuff like that. I know all that messed up, but like those scenes were like very specific. And I'm like, that was thought through, or something happened there that, great use of it. And awesome for, recognizing that, hey, we have something great here. Let's shoot it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, very cool. We are very lucky here in the Catskills about, just the cycles of nature are before us. The seasons cycle before us, the animals cycle before us, the people cycle before us, and they're all it's a very, as I was saying before we were recording, it's a kind of a, it's brutally beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And since we're talking about like being in the woods and everything, we got to talk about the part where we are throwing blood up on each other. How many takes was that? Or is that one take? Is y'all just throwing blood up on each other a couple times? Tell me about that scene.
Well, the throwing blood up on each other definitely only took one try because it was a lot and it was cold. And fun fact, blood on the snow and in the cold is a million times colder. It just hits you and goes straight to the bone. So as much as it was a really fun bonding experience between Toby and me, it was also like, we're only doing this once and then going in and editing it immediately.
Also, we ran out of blood. Like I poured some, actually she vomits the blood onto Toby. So there's kind of a limited amount of blood that she can vomit on Toby. But when we did Zelda's shot, I got to pour the blood on Zelda. It didn't come out of Toby's mouth. And so that I just took everything out. Blam! And Zelda's just like, what the hell?
I think I had to stop acting for a second in that shot. It was just pure shock.
Yeah, I bet. So that's awesome. Yeah, so I was like, man, I watched that scene a couple of times. I was like, yeah, that's one take. It has to be like, we're not doing this multiple times. So, there's no way you can mess that up, really,
Well, actually, it's funny. It did ruin our camera. Some of that blood. We use maple syrup. We use chocolate syrup and strawberry syrup, and then some corn syrup to make it like real goopy. And just one splatter hit into my microphone on my camera and ruined the audio on the camera, which kind of sucked. But luckily, that was, I think, the last thing we shot, or one of the last things we shot.
Yeah, it was.
So it was pretty lucky.
And I'm assuming y'all made your own blood then, right? So you made it at home. You didn't have to buy. You already had the condiments to make it.
Yeah, we like to make our own blood because one, it tastes better, and it doesn't get stuck and stain as much as fake blood does. We've had a lot of issues where we use like store-bought blood, and then it stays on your fingers for like 5 days, and it can be hard to shoot scenes with that like still on your fingers.
Yeah. So one thing I haven't talked about yet is the music, the scoring. John, great job with the music and everything. I have a note here about I'm a Hit and Run. I loved the song. It was great. I mean, Zelda, you're a great musician, and so is Toby. Y'all are amazing. And in that scene when you're singing that song, again, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself, but like the scoring, John, like, I mean, I've only seen The Hatred, but it was very recognizable to me when I was watching the movie of like the sound design, the music. Tell me about how what you do when you do that. Do you sit down and you write the music? Do you already have it? Songs you've had in the past that you use again? Tell me about how you kind of score the film like that.
First of all, we are in a band called Hellbender together as a family again, but all the E's are sixes. So we've had a band called Hellbender for a little while.
Y'all paint your faces?
No, but we might start. Actually, we have a show coming up, and we're trying to figure out what we're gonna do. But
I'm a fan of painted faces. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah, painted faces are pretty freaking awesome. I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
But whenever we are talking about a film, like if we decide when we decided we were gonna make The Hatred, I just start writing music because it helps set the tone for the movie that we're gonna make. So with Hellbender, I started writing the music, and I think that early on there was a little bit of a discussion of I don't know about that, and so we kind of changed it, and we kind of talk about the tone together. And when the girls like the songs, when they're like, that sounds badass, then we kind of know what our tone is going to be. And Hit and Run was definitely written early on for Hellbender as a real theme for the movie. Like we really wanted to have themes, so we would write theme songs. Some of them didn't make it into the movie for various reasons. We wrote, I think, 23 songs for Hellbender. And I
Wow.
think only 9 make it in, something like that. But it's important to us for editing too. We'd like to edit, like, we like our movie to have like a kind of sometimes a music video feel to it. I think that just has a good entertainment value, and it keeps the audience having fun. So that's kind of your answer. That it's
Yeah.
also, so we write early, but also as we're filming, if we feel like we're missing something, we write again. So there's kind of like 2 writing stages of writing, and one is before anything's shot, and then when about 80% of the movie's done, if we feel like, you know what, we need something better for this, we gotta go in and write some more.
Awesome. I mean, it's amazing that y'all are so talented that you can literally make a movie by yourselves.
Thank you.
Amazing family.
Thank you.
That's super, very cool of you. We feel just lucky, actually, and we really feel lucky that people are enjoying the ride with us, you know?
Right. No, exactly. And I have a follow-up question to that. I'm a hit and run is so. And I wrote this like right next to each other, so I don't remember if it was like right after or during the same time. But there's a scene where Zelda's out in the woods, and the outfit she's got on kind of has a Chucky feel to me, like, you know, from the Chucky. Her outfit was a little Chucky style, and I was like, is that another thing?
That's actually a really good question. I mean, I know that like when I wear that outfit, because it's actually from my wardrobe, that I do feel like Chucky. But I think the reason that we use that outfit is because it had the, you know, kind of warm tone striped top to it, which I think was very representative of fall. And then it also had the overalls, which felt very fall-like too. So we wanted to use that in like the fall montage to just match the vibe. And
Yeah, and we also wanted to, I remember we talked about that. We wanted to show that Izzy was becoming a more colorful character, like she was really blossoming into. So it was like, it was an important thing. I remember you guys actually put that outfit together. Yeah.
See, there you go. I mean, that makes sense. Like, yeah, no, all of a sudden you're blossoming a little bit. You're becoming more colorful, you know, having taste for meat. Yeah, I mean, I see it.
And that music, actually, you talk about that song, I'm a Hit and Run, is
Uh-huh.
super duper tribal. And that's why we kind of like, that's what we wanted. And at that stage of the game, the music starts out, they're practicing in their band, and they look very tribal now. Like
Yes.
she's wearing her crown, and she's
Yes.
got very tribal makeup, and so does
Ah.
Toby. And so it's kind of like, we wanted to kind of show that she's really settling into her tribal nature.
I see that now. Yes, 100%. And I have to tell you, Zelda, you look like a badass. When you play the drums, you seriously look like a badass.
oh, thank you.
Well, I mean,
That's
you know, with the
really
makeup
nice.
and the crown, and you're just like playing your thing. Awesome.
Wearing that crown just like makes you magically feel more badass. Something about it. You put it on, it's like badass mode. Unite or initiate. Ignite.
Something.
And you know, so yeah, no, so that was what I loved. That transitional scene there, it was great. As always, like, I mean, even like your graphics, the CGI, y'all do that yourselves too. I mean, I'm assuming you film these stuff like that scene too, like they're screaming and the faces. Is that done on green screen? How y'all do that?
So it's like, when it comes to effects, it's a mix. It's a mix of organic kind of composite effects that I do. And it's also a mix of, we have a great effects guy named Trey Lindsay. So like things like when the key comes out of the hand,
Yep.
that's a Trey effect. Like he does more of the magic stuff, like, and he's very, very good at it. And he's wonderful to work with. And
Yep.
I do kind of like more like just camera trick stuff, like when the bloody stick sucks into the ground, like I did that.
Yeah. Mhm.
So it's kind of like I do things that I can do right there with the camera,
Mhm.
and he does stuff that just can't be done with the camera.
Right. So who blew you up? Who lifted you up and boom, or you know, turned you on fire? Who did that? Is that you or him?
Actually, that was a great mix of both of us, because, and Zelda, we actually took the dummy that we hung in the beginning of the movie, just doused it in gasoline, and found a tree out in our woods, lit that thing on fire. Zelda filmed, and I just kept pulling it up and down to get that hanging fiery body motion.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
Trey added some effects that made it all just completely really real and really badass. And also that's actually an actress, because you see the flaming face shooting towards the camera.
Yeah.
That's just an actress, a local friend, actress, whatever. She's our great friend Judy, just standing on
A white piece of board.
yeah, she's standing on a piece of
Oh,
plywood
yeah,
that we painted
yeah.
white and just went, ah.
We blew like a lot of wind on her.
Right. Yeah, we
Yeah.
had like a little fan blowing on it. It was great. And then Trey turned that into a wonderful scene.
Yeah, no, it was great. But what about the scene where you get blown up? You're right. You're the
Oh
guy
yeah.
in the
Oh
woods?
yeah. When I get blown up, no. Oh, again, that's Trey and I working together. That's done. That was really fun. That's me hanging from our Kubota. We got a little backhoe. And
Okay.
so
That's
I'm
awesome.
hanging from the Kubota.
We had like a harness and we like tied him up.
Right. And then Toby lifted me
Oh.
up with the shovel. And then she dropped me. And there's a behind the scenes, some crazy behind the scenes stuff, because Toby didn't really know how to work the shovel. So
Oh no, it's
she put me
scary.
through some serious hell. And then what we did was we filmed me going up and down, and then we took some ash from the TV, and from the fireplace, and dropped it. And so then Trey combined them and took away the Kubota and did his kind of computer magic. So it is like all that stuff is real, but
Yeah.
Trey put it together in a way that was, I think, really cool.
It was. It was. I mean, like that's what I'm saying. Like I'm so impressed by y'all, because y'all are doing some really, really cool things. And Mike, Chris, my business partner, sorry, my business partner and Clint and I, we always say the idea of like, hey, we can make Avatar for the right budget. Like we have the talent to do that. But y'all seem to be doing it yourselves, and that's amazing. Like it's really, really cool that y'all could do that by yourselves. And being
fun.
successful at it, and getting
Thank
stuff
you.
on
Thank you.
on Prime and everything, great job. And it's like you're doing what we want to do, but we're not doing it.
Well, do it. It's fun as hell, but it takes a long time. You know what? Sometimes I think the one thing I do notice about when you do it yourself, you have to be willing to sit for 7 days and make mistakes every single day for 7 days to get a 2-second shot. And if it's important enough for you to sit there and do it, everybody figures it out. But there's 7 days of mistakes and not good enough and learning. And it's like, and then in the end, it's like 2 seconds, but it's worth it. It's really, it's fun to do.
So again, I haven't seen The Deeper You Dig. Like you use family and friends, and I'm sure when y'all are putting this together, you did The Hatred. I'm sure there was a lot of family and friends saying, "Hey, I want to be in your next movie. I want to be in your next movie," and you got to do that in this one. Like, who are all these people? Are they neighbors, family, friends? Like, whose swimming pool was that? Tell me about the cast and how your family and friends seem to want to do this with you. Like, obviously they see that y'all are talented. Tell me about how all that works for y'all.
Well, the opening scene is basically a bunch of soccer moms from my soccer team. We were like, "Who wants to be in our movie?" Oh, I do. So
there's a lady that had a
lynching in the beginning of the.
There you go.
I haven't
You're in.
all right, I'm in the next movie.
And so that opening scene was shot right before COVID, actually. That's why we were all close together. And then COVID hit. But we also, the older man in the beginning of the movie, that's my grandpa. And the woman there, she was the actual store owner. We like to hire people to just play themselves. That way it's just extremely real.
That's what David
and
was
obviously
saying. Yeah.
we just hire a lot of family. One of my grandma was in the opening sequence in the hanging. Lulu plays Amber, and the people that own like the pool house and the pool, the two kids actually own that, and it's probably 100 yards away from us right now. It's our neighboring house, and we love to go there.
Yeah, our towns and our neighbors and everybody knows we make films, and they're very, very, very supportive. And they let us shoot in their diners. We can shoot on the street. Nobody bothers us. They know what we're doing. Like right now, there's this crazy carnival set down on our property that probably looks like an eyesore to everybody, but they're all nice enough not to break our stones about it. And people are really good sports about when we say, hey, would you mind being in this film? Like, for example, I know you haven't seen it, but The Deeper You Dig, like we needed 2 cops. So we asked the local cops, would you be in our movie? And they're like, yeah, sure. But, I'm not an actor. And it's like, we don't want you to be. We just want you to be yourself. Interview me like I've done a crime. That's all I want you to do. We don't even give them lines. And the cops show up and they pretend that there's somebody missing, and they ask you the questions that they would if they were a cop, because they are a cop.
So they're improvising. So they're improvising with y'all? That's amazing.
Yeah. So it's fun. We have a ton of support from our community.
That is awesome. David, I'm sorry I hijacked this interview. We only have like 5 more minutes left,
No, that's good. No,
next one.
I enjoy watching the back and forth, because Nelson, again, we know we watch these movies and then we talk on the phone, and he gets very excited about it. But everything we're talking about here is very important to filmmaking. My I guess compliments on the movie are the pacing. It's the right pacing, just like The Hatred. It's not sped up. It doesn't rush to an ending. It builds up the way it should, to the crescendo. So in Hellbender, in the very end, with Toby and Zelda in that very dark, cavernous place, cave, whatever it is, the crescendo works. It builds. So it's a rational movement. It's logical the way it's moving. That's one. Second is the whispering. So we have, again, from The Hatred, this whispering, and like Nelson said, the audio is so crisp. And we have whispering again in Hellbender, which is mysterious, right? It's scary. I mean, it's just scary, right? So I just like that about the film, that it's paced right. The audio is good. The music, sure, right? Of course, music's fine. But it's those little tiny things like the whispering, the low voices, the close-ups of the mother and daughter, the intensity of it, is what makes it very frightening. Because, as you mentioned earlier, is when Zelda talked about that the mother says you have an illness. Well, she does have an illness, right? It's a different kind of illness, right? It is an illness. She wasn't making that up. It's not something you can pass on, perhaps, but it runs in our family. I have it, now you have it, right? I'm trying to get rid of it. I'm in therapy for it or whatever, and now you've got it, and you have the thirst, what I had when I was a young girl, and I'm trying to keep you safe, right? But also keep others safe. So it really is an illness, right? So it's layered. It's good. I mean, I really enjoyed it.
We enjoy it. So
Thank you so much. That's really nice. You talk about the whispering. I think one of the differences between The Hatred and Hellbender, and because we utilize whispering in Hellbender for spells, for these Hellbender spells, and to show the myth of their power and the history of their power. And I think that we learned a lot from The Hatred. And we wanted the whispering and the talking and the spells. We wanted to understand them more, because we learned the effectiveness of those things in The Hatred. But I don't think in The Hatred we had to develop them as much. Like they weren't like, I don't think we understood as well as we did with The Hatred what was being said and why it was being said. Like The Hatred was just this wonderful film to learn so many like character, like I don't know how to say it, but we learned so much with The Hatred. And then we learned like what people liked, and we were like, cool, if people like this, we like this, so let's try to build up a really solid foundation under it. And you bring up the whispering, and that's one of the things that we wanted to understand more and make stronger.
Well, I mean, I just thought, I mean, again, when the mother mentioned, how old are you? 147 years old. Then I got my calculator out, right, and said, oh, it's Civil War. Now up to this time, is she actually 147, right? Is this actually someone who's lived, like a vampire, right, beyond,
Right.
and not supposed to have a kid perhaps, and yet she has a daughter, but it's forbidden to have a daughter because she has this illness, and now it's passed on to her daughter. So it's it's just that this stuff you make, your family makes, it's not flippant. Thought goes into it, concepts, ideas, and then of course the acting's fine. It's nothing wrong with the acting. It all works. The setting is great, but to maintain that mythology or folklore that you're creating, and I know we haven't seen this other movie you made, but this idea of this bridge between these two films, it is creating a mythology, a folklore, a mystic thing between these two time periods and two worlds. So again, I just think that people who like horror films and scary movies would appreciate it, because it's not just a chainsaw involved.
To build on that, David, is like it's a horror film, but it's not a horror film. It's not one of those things where you're waiting to be like boo scared and stuff like that. It's a scary story that's being told slowly as you're getting as you're getting deeper into it. You're not waiting for these things just to pop out at you and scare you. It's a deeper thought into that.
We like to say it's like a drama, but with some blood poured over it.
A great analogy for it. I love it. It is good. There's one question that I missed that I meant to ask. Like, the scenes when you're in the woods and you're talking while you're walking and the camera's so still and the audio sounds great. How did y'all do that? Like, what kind of camera? Do you have a steady? I mean, you're not using warp and Premiere. That's in camera. How'd y'all do that?
That's a great question.
Yeah, our past film, The Deeper You Dig, was quite static because we only had our Canon 5D and the tripod. For this one, we wanted to add more movement. So we bought a drone, first of all, but also we bought a Steadicam, a Ronin S. And that was our new favorite toy ever to use. We brought it everywhere with us. And a lot of this scene is shot on the Ronin. And to get good sound on that scene, we also had to overdub it because there was a lot of like crackling noise that didn't sound good. So we had to overdub a lot of that scene.
Another thing that we do just so we don't have to overdub a ton is we place Sennheiser mics. We have two Zooms and two Sennheiser mics. And what we do is we hide them behind a fern and we say, Toby, when you pass this, try to say that. And then when Zelda gets there, she should say her lines. And then we have the other Zoom so that like basically there's one scene where they're walking through the woods and Toby turns to say something. Well, the reason she does that is because there's a Sennheiser mic right behind the fern right there. And then she walks to her next microphone and says her next line. And then Zelda stops in front of the first microphone. So we've learned that overdubbing is very, very, very hard. And so if we don't have to do it, we won't. And the only way we can really do it is to kind of hide microphones behind things and get people to try to say their lines on their marks,
Right. So I mean, again, I was impressed. I'm like, I mean, these are home movies to them, and these are your home movies. It's amazing, and like this, like I said, like I was impressed of how still it was while you're walking, and the audio was great. Again, great job, y'all.
Thank you. It's so great. It's so great that you're talking about these issues that we spend a lot of time thinking through, and so it means a lot to us. It means a lot to us that you're picking up on this stuff. I mean, it really does.
Yeah. Well, again, I mean, I'm fans of y'all's. I can't wait to watch The Deeper You Dig, and I'm sure we'll be talking to Tom in a month or so we can interview about this one.
I can't wait to hear your thoughts on that.
Please.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're about to do another. I could talk to y'all for another 30 minutes to an hour, but we got another one to go. Thank y'all for making the time available. Thank y'all for moving the time yesterday. There was it was just a little situation that I had to take care of, but I'm happy that I know y'all. Y'all are good people.
Yeah.
Y'all are talented people. I can't wait to see the next one.
Well, thank you. And thank you for making time to talk with us,
Yeah.
because we make movies so that we can be a part of this community. Like, we love everyone. We love you guys. So thank you.
Awesome. David, again, I hijacked it. You want to say anything? I keep doing that. I'm sorry.
Well, maybe one year we'll see you guys at South by. See you at South by here in Austin.
Are y'all coming to South by?
Well, maybe one year they can come. South by.
No,
okay.
the only time we come to Austin, we come out there for Fantastic Fest.
Okay, cool. Well, then I'll see y'all then.
Yeah,
Yeah. So again, I
great.
mean, y'all have already won these festivals for Fantasia and Mar del Plata. So hey, yeah, come back for Fantastic Fest.
Please.
And we'd love to come to South by. We'll see what happens with our next movie.
Awesome. Sounds great. Well, again, John, Zelda, thank you very much for making your time available for us. Enjoy talking to all these little, questions I had about your movie and telling us how you did these things. It helps a lot of people. Whoever watches these things, it helps them understand how they can maybe do something. So I appreciate it.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Have a great night.
Bye.
All right.
Peace.
Bye.